let's do a quick recap of how to format floating point numbers. At this point, uh, this should be a recap for you, and you should be able to have all of your outputs formatted so that, for example, for using currency, you have two decimal places for them, so that we have dollars and cents, and that should be hopefully second nature to you by now. But just in case it's not, you're struggling with a little bit. Let's recap. Okay, so this should hopefully look familiar to you. This little set of slides that I'm going to use is from our Chapter 2 PowerPoint. I think the formatting numbers section starts about slide 50 or so. So anyway, so I want to just take a look at this and take a look at the syntax of this once again. So we've got our string here. We've got a comma that's going to separate this, and then we have format. So that's our reserved word built-in function that we've got. We're opening a parenthesis, we're closing a parenthesis, and then in between we have either a variable name. For this, I just put a number here, and then we have a comma to separate it, and then either single or double quotes. We have the quote here to close this out, and then we have dot 2f. So for this particular one, it's going to give us two decimal places, 1.55. Okay, so dot 2f, so we want two. This is our floating number that we've got, so we're going to set this up this way. So let's go ahead and when you go to this link, and if you want to go to the link, go back to Chapter 2, PowerPoint again, it's about slide 50-ish or so. So anyway, so here we have our code, and I'm going to just hit visualize, and then you'll see as we step through this, we're putting these variables in and setting the amounts here. There's a nice little equation. And then here is our format that we've got here. So this is the statement. When I hit next, here we go. The monthly payment is $416.67. Okay, so great. All right. So that's basically it. Okay. So let's take a look at a couple more examples. We'll add some things in. Okay. So, or let's say just for this one, let's say that you would like to, I don't know, we'll add a comma in. So we're going to look at one. I'll just go to the next slide here very quickly. And you'll see in this one, we have this big number and then we have a comma here. And you notice the comma is after the quote before the period. Okay, so it has to be in this order. So that what this will do is give us a nice little output where it'll put the commas in automatically where needed, if if it's needed in here to have millions or whatever. So it just makes it an easier format to read, and it's really easy to do. In fact, I'll be honest, when I'm setting my code up, I do this for every single thing. So no matter what I'm doing, I always do comma dot. And that's the way I'm always doing my formats there. So anyway, so there's that. And let's take a look at this one. So this is another one. So this is something that I get questions about this one sometimes. And let me go back. So let me go back here. So in this particular code, we are using our SEP. So separate. We've used this before. So this is sort of a recap. I'm trying to throw in some tools that we've seen, but maybe we haven't used them a ton. So there are other ways of doing this, but I wanted to use this just to throw this in here, and you'll see end in a second too. So anyway, so on this one we have your annual pay is, and then we have this little format in here, and here we go again. So annual pay, and then a comma, and then we have our quote, comma dot 2f, so we're going to get two decimal places again, and then we're closing this out, so that this parenthesis closes out with the format, so that is done, and then we comma again, and then SEP equals, and then this quote just means nothing. I don't want anything in there. And so what ends up happening here is this will remove the space that will naturally appear. In fact, let's show it here real quick, just because, but this is a question. If we were in the labs, this is something that someone would ask me this. So we're just going to get rid of that, and we'll see it two different ways. Okay, so let's do this. And I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger. And as we walk through here, here we go. So this first one, here we go. It's going to print that statement. Notice this space right here. So that really bothers some people. Anyway, they don't want that there. All right. So that you see right here, the separate equals, that will take that space out. And so when you hit next, there you go, right there. It gets rid of it. So it's a really kind of easy way to do that. I mean, again, there are other ways, but we've used this tool briefly before, so kind of a recap for you. Okay, let's take a look at another option, and I mentioned in, so SCP equals, quote, quote, nothing in there. Can be double quotes as well, again, so in Python it doesn't matter a whole lot. So we've got remove space between, that. So let's take a look at this one. If we wanted to add a period, because people say, wait a second, I want to add a period at the end of my sentence. And sometimes when you're doing formatting, you're doing separate, you get into some little issues. So if you have some issues, this is one way that you can fix it. So remember that print built into it has a carriage return or an enter, right? So you're going down to the next line, and carriage return, I guess, for those of us that are a little bit older and have used a typewriter before, and I'm sure there are other terms too. But anyway, so we're using end this time, and I just use double quotes for this one to just see. You can see it says, it doesn't really matter. So we say end equals quote quote. That means we don't want it to go down to the next line. So by having this print statement here and entering a period, that's going to give us the period at the end of the sentence. And there you go. Again, there are other ways of doing this, and I recognize that, but I wanted to throw in a couple of things that we have used before, just as a way of doing this. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to go ahead and put this on here. Here comes our print statement. Your annual pay is, and notice it goes down to the next line, but it doesn't really matter because look, with the end equals, goes in and puts the period there. So this is one way to separate out when you're doing formatting, but you want to keep, you want to continue things on. That's one way of doing it. Again, we can get into using pluses. We can use other things too, but I just wanted to show you this way. Okay. And let's see. Let's look at a couple more just little things. Let's say that you wanted to set up something like this to have a better output, because this is a disaster. We want to line up the decimal places. Okay, so this is a way that you can do this. Notice in this, same as what we've just been doing, but there's a 7 in front of it. Okay, so and for this particular one, we're saying, hey, I want you to use a field of 7 spaces. And so this code, as we go over, and watch this little baby work. Make that bigger there. And I'm going to blow that up. Okay, so when I hit next and I roll through, notice it's storing them just as is. But when we display it with our print, look at this little baby. Ooh, look how nice that is. Okay, so it's going over and it's saying, hey, we want to use 7, so this is nothing, but that gives us a way to line those up. Say this is what I want to do, and we could do this. This can be a different number in the front, doesn't really matter. Or if we wanted one decimal place, we could change that to a 1. So not that big a deal. So you can play around with it and see sort of the formats that you get. But anyway, this is a nice way to get an even output for something where it may not. I don't know. This is a disaster. So bugs me. So anyway, you'll see as you go through, you'll see some of those, and you'll be like, "Oh man, how did I do that again?" Well, anyway, go back, take a look at this, and that can help you. And one last thing, sort of some funky ones here. So we've got a little bit of funkiness here with a percentage. So if we wanted to use this, we have print. We're using format. We wanted to go ahead and say, "Hey, we're going to use the percent," and we want it to be a percentage. But notice that this goes ahead and puts in all the zeros. So if we want to get rid of that, we could put .0 ahead of it or .1, and it'll give us one decimal place or whatever. Okay, so and we'll take a look at the code in a second. The other thing that you'll see is, let's say we wanted to, we've got an integer and we wanted to use some of the same kinds of things here. Okay, so you can use D for designator, and that gives you the ability to then go ahead and throw in same kind of thing, format. Notice how we have the number listed here, and a comma, and then we have quote, quote in here, and in between we have the comma and then D for designator. So the comma is going to throw a comma in here. If we had another figure over here in the millions, we'd have another comma that would automatically be put there. So let's take a look at the code, just really briefly, and what it would do. And you can see, obviously, those are comments right there, but let's go over there, and we're going to say next. And as I'm walking through the code here, you'll see stuff start to pop up. Here's my first one. So there's 50 with our decimal places. Here we've got 50 with, I put a .1 in there. So on the slide it was .0, but I put a 1 in there just so you've got one decimal place. And then here we go with this one, and we've got the designator, and we're doing it that way. Now, a couple of things with this. You can also go back. To be honest, I never use this, ever, because, I don't know, I just never do. So instead, what I will do is something like this. And I'll say, hey, just because I'm so used to this format. So for this one, instead of, what we've seen for currency is a 2 here. So same kind of a thing. I'm still using the comma because I wanted to insert the commas where needed. Okay. In fact, we could even make this number a little bigger and you'd see that. Uh, but I use F, and if I don't want a decimal place, then that's fine. I'll just go ahead and put a dot zero there. I know it's probably not cool, but I'm so used to using this that just out of habit, I always do it. So anyway, if you're like, man, where'd this D thing come from? So you don't have to use a designator necessarily. Do it this way. It's totally fine. Okay, so I'm gonna hit visualize through so you can see this one, and we'll walk through this real quick. And when we get down here, oops, probably went a little bit too fast, but that's okay. So there's our first one right there, and then when we print that out, oh, look at that little baby. Same thing, exactly. I mean, obviously I put more numbers here, but we the dot or the D here and the dot zero F, same thing. So anyway, this is just a quick recap. There are, lots of other ways to do this stuff, but we've seen these ways before, and we'll actually take a look at some others probably before the end of the semester anyway. But I just wanted to do a recap of this and just to help you with formatting a little bit.